Well, let's not keep him waiting. Let's bring him on. Here we go. Bundy, Chris Therien, welcome to the show, man.
Great to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. We appreciate your football expertise, but we're here to talk hockey with you, Chris, so let's get to it. It's going to be a unique 56-game NHL season. The Flyers playing all of their games against 7 Eastern teams, 8 games against each. So minimal travel, that's the good thing, but not a lot of days off. This is going to be a very interesting season, something unprecedented.
You know, it's really odd. Somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, and of course I won't be covering the Flyers, at least on that official basis this year. So this will be about the gist of it. So I often wondered sometimes if they realize that they may have been paying me to actually not tell the truth sometime, and they may find out. But no, I really think that when you look at the season, someone said, as I said, someone was saying to me a couple weeks ago that, hey, this is going to be great. You're playing 7 or 8 teams, over 56 games. And I said, you guys got to remember, this is not the 1984 Patrick division. It's not. It actually probably has more of a tendency to become enamored with someone else on the other team, or where you become more familiar with them. There was a time in this league, I think, where there would have been complete animosity the entire year. Hockey's always best played chaotic. That's the way I've always felt it. It's a different sport now in a lot of ways. And so in terms of that intensity, I'm expecting a lot of intensity. But in terms of what I think the fans love to see back in the 80s and 90s, you're not going to see – I don't think you're going to see those rivalries develop any more than what we've seen in the last couple of years. I just don't see it happening. I don't think there's enough physicality in the sport to welcome any more physicality.
Well, Chris, obviously the players have never gone through anything like we're going through now. We saw it in football with the massive injuries that took place. These guys, your hockey guys, 10 days, show up on the 3rd. We're going to play for real on the 13th. I don't guess they had full access to rinks to get in shape and skating shape and all that because everybody was on lockdown. What do you make of that? And boy, I sure hate to see a season ruined by injuries. 56 games isn't long.
Well, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be a multitude of injuries. So it's next man up. That's why they expanded the rosters this year, which they really have to do. I do a podcast actually just for with Jim McCross and every Wednesday, just a medical thing. We just go about different scenarios that young athletes have had. We've done it for the last 10 weeks, and really one of them, and I can sense it in Jim McCross's voice when I'm talking to him, is he's concerned. I mean, he's concerned. It's 10 days. You jump right into it, and again, you look at college football or the beginning of the NFL, the amount of injuries that have taken place because of no training camp. Hockey's a quick twitch type of sport, right? You're moving left, you're right, you're backwards, you're all over the place. Groin pulls happen, those knee tweaks can happen. So again, and part of the problem is that it's a 56-game schedule where you got to be all out all the time. There's just, you can't really, it's amazing. I've played those shortened schedules before. It's very, very difficult to be able to maneuver your way through them. And if you go on a losing streak of lose 7 out of 8 or 8 out of 9, you're done. The season's over. So, I mean, we saw last year how tight it was at the end. It'll be even tighter this year. You're going to see teams now within 3 or 4 points heading down the final stretch, the last 5 games of the year. That's great in terms of getting more of that parity inside the league. But it's going to have to be a very, very focused start by the Flyers, and they're going to have to stay as healthy as they possibly can.
Well, they put out their roster today, 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, 7 taxi squatters or 6 taxi squatters. It looks to me like a pretty deep team. I mean, Nolan Patrick is back, which is great to see. Oskar Lindblom coming back from cancer, which is terrific, of course. What a great story. Am I right that this is a deep squad?
I do. I mean, I think now that any team that has revamped their fourth line, whether it becomes an energy fourth line, to me, the most important line in all of hockey is the third line, simply because it's left unexposed to the challenges of being checked by the opposition. If you have a great third line, you can have a really good hockey team because it's not the one that's matched up in the top 2 against the other team's top 2 pairs and so on. So again, for that reason, guys coming back like Nolan Patrick, hopefully guys expanding on the years they had last year with Obey Kubel, the young defenseman taking a step forward. There are some other things that, we'll see how they shape up through the year. Matt Niskanen leaves the team. again, I like Provorov a lot. I'm not sure that he's a number one defenseman yet. Those are questions that are going to have to be left out in the open. There's, Niskanen really solidified that pair last year, and then Ivan had an excellent second half. So again, I want to see how he does on his own now as the front man of a pair. And again, as I said, development of young defensemen, guys, is just so critical for any hockey team. And again, but the Flyers do have Carter Hart, which is always a good sign, a good thing to have is a great backstopper. And certainly the first couple of years of his career has been nothing shy of excellent.
Hey, Chris, of the forwards, I guess I'm not really surprised, but I'm wondering what kind of impact Morgan Frost is going to have. If he's going to get a lot of playing time, I'm looking for a guy, and in the juniors, I guess he was that guy that could score a lot of goals, and this team needs a lot of goals.
Yeah, he's got a ton of skill already. He's a late first-round pick, a really good kid, a tremendous junior player. He is a guy that just needs to grow up in the league. There's a spot for a kid like Morgan Frost to play now in the NHL. I'm not so sure that would have been the case 25 years ago, but with the rosters changing and again, looking for skill more down on your depth lines, you'll see kids with high skill level playing in those spots now. So it looks like he may have been marked as the extra in practice the last couple of days. Makes sense if he does not start the season, immediately. But there will be a spot for him somewhere this year. Again, his development will be important to see in terms of what this team's able to do with their young guys. It'll be a big evaluation year for a lot of the young guys to have a look to see where they've come off that playoff last year and where they are in the regular season.
You mentioned Carter Hart a moment or two ago, and we're all excited to see his continued development. He's still just 22, which is amazing. What do you expect from him now in his third season, and how are he and Brian Elliott going to split the time?
Yeah, you know what? I think that Carter is one of these kids that's made some unbelievably great. He makes some phenomenal stops, and I think not unlike any other goalie, where you have other goalies that are young. They have their moments where some softies get by them. If you go back to that 7-game series last year against the Islanders. I was golfing with Craig Berube this summer, and right after it all had ended, and I came back, and he said, "Well, Carter Hart's." A few of the old Flyers were golfing. We were talking shop, and someone said, what, Carter Hart? And someone said, well, he gave up 3 goals in every single game in that series, a minimum of 3 goals in the 7 games. And I remember Chief said, yeah, it's not good enough. You can't win a series when you allow 3 goals against in every single game in a series. And you know what? Again, he's made brilliant stops, and when he's hot, he's hot. He seems to fall into a little bit of a funk when things don't go his way early, but I think Philadelphia, guys, is in shape for a dozen years with some really, really solid goaltending. I only think he's going to get better. He's a great kid. He takes things in stride. I've seen him down there stretching, getting ready for games when I was doing it. And he's a kid, I can tell you one thing, you're not going to get cheated by him. The fans won't. He's prepared. His effort's there, and he's ready to go every single night.
Well, Chris, I want to ask you about Claude Giroux. The Philly fans, they're measuring him by his Stanley Cups, and I like the heck out of him. I think he's been a great player. He's up on the top of the record list team-wise. What's your take on Giroux and now and as across his career?
When Claude, it's funny. It's a great question. When Claude came into the league, and I don't think I've ever been any more fair with any player that that comes through Philadelphia. If you're good, I'll let you know. If you're not, well, maybe you're playing the wrong sport. Claude Giroux, when he came in, he was. As soon as I saw him for 10 games, I said, this guy will eventually, within a few years, be a top 5 player in the NHL, and he was for a number of years. The problem with Philadelphia playing here is if you don't take care of your business via playoff wins, you're going to be judged. That's the way it is. Ask Joel Embiid. Lost 4 straight last year. If you don't win playoff series, if you don't elevate your game in the biggest moments of the year, then you're going to feel the butt end of the fan base, and that's it. And unfortunately, he's the captain of the team. He had his first playoff win this past summer as a captain of the team. And I think when you look at a decade's of work, he's done a ton of stuff, individual achievements. He's made a lot of players better, but he's missing after his initial year when he went to the finals against Chicago, when he's really, really young. He was probably more of a third-line guy. Since he's taken over, he's not had that playoff success of going deep into the rounds that the fans here expect for a player who's put up those numbers. That's it. This is Philadelphia. If you want to play in Nashville, or you want to play in some other little, rinky-dink town, go ahead and play where the fans don't care. This is Philly. You have to win playoff series if you want to be put on a mantle with guys like Bob Clark and everyone else that had won prior to them. And now the problem with that is it's almost 55 years now, right, since they've won a Stanley Cup. So that elevates the pressure on everybody.
Well, Chris, one thing I love about the Flyers is how all the alumni are, so friendly with one another. And you got to play in the Winter Classic, the outdoor game, the alumni game at the ballpark on New Year's Eve 9 years ago. And a few weeks ago, you posted this picture. And it's, of course, you and Bernie Perrant, you playing D in front of Bernie. I love this. How much fun was playing that game? And is Bernie not the coolest guy in the world?
Well, I don't have to tell anybody how cool a guy Bernie is. I mean, Bernie's the best, right? He's just unbelievable. He's another guy that just, Bernie's God, right? I'm not. There's only a couple of guys that are portrayed like that, and probably in the history of the franchise, it may be Bernie and Clarkie, in terms of what they've done. But that was one of the greatest days of hockey in my life. I could safely say that. I enjoyed that day. The celebration of the sport more than I think any other time I've been a Flyer. We've been some big playoff games. It wasn't quite we didn't have to quite have the stomach butterflies before that Winter Classic game. And the way it went down, the Ron Duguay shot into the pads of Bernie, the fans, the standing ovations. It was just an amazing day. I'm not sure you can recreate something like that because I think the only time it could be that special was the first time, and it was just a great day.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, before we get to our closing, because Chet likes to play a game we call Fast Five with anyone's a new guest, but I want to ask you before we get to that, you have some daughters that are some pretty good athletes that are doing some great things. Tell us a little bit about what's going on over there at the Therien house.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, my kids are like all of us are my pride and joy, and all four. I met my wife here in the area. She's a local girl. My kids were all born in the area. I have three daughters, Isabella, Ava, and Alexa, and Christopher is a 14-year-old boy who is almost as big as I am. So I'm not sure yet if it's football or hockey. We'll figure that out in the next couple of years for him. But my daughters, I have two of them that play at Loyola, Maryland together in the Patriot League. And I have a third daughter who's still at Cherokee here in New Jersey that will be going to Boston University next year, which is in the same league as Loyola. So Isabella will be graduated this year. Hopefully they get a few games in. She's a terrific player. It's had some injuries the last few years. And Ava, her sister on the team, they've been doing great. I'm looking forward to hopefully high school picking up here and in hockey for my boy. But that's the best. I love. I never knew when I got here that basketball would be such an integral part of our family, and it has been. And like I say, I'm a hockey fan and a girls basketball fan. I have to say girls basketball. It's very, very important that I mention that because that's what I do. Those are my hobbies now. So the nights that I don't have to do the Flyers games on an official level, I will be able to sit back in my recliner here and watch the Loyola girls basketball and Cherokee girls basketball play hockey or basketball this year.
Awesome. Are they tall?
Excuse me?
Are they tall? The girls tall?
You know what? My third one's 6'2". My 6 foot, 5'11" and a half, and 6'2".
Nice.
That's tall.
Yeah,
that's tall.
All right.
Hey, before we get to Fast Five, I have one other thing. I know you're doing something new career-wise that you're not ready to disclose just yet, but I do know because I've seen you on Facebook. You're doing these mini reviews of local bars and restaurants. Looks like you're having a lot of fun with that, and you get to eat a lot of wings and pizza, which is not a bad thing.
You know what, guys? I'm not doing it for any kind of coupons or any free days. I'm not at all. These are restaurants that I just was thinking to myself on New Year's Eve. I'm like, you know, I mean, there's so many places that are struggling right now. Restaurants, you know, I talked to a good friend of mine, the owner of Ponzio's, and I'd heard his story. I'm like, you know what? There's got to be something. If I have whatever little notoriety I have, I'd like to try to at least make it public. The places that I've enjoyed over the years, places that have been good to me, my teammates, my family, and just kind of lend them some support and video. Hopefully as many people as they can hear the name of the place I'm mentioning, or certainly get the idea of going out to order takeout and support our local businesses because, you know, it's been a really brutal 10 months since last March. And that's not what I'm doing though, guys. I'm not a food critic. I will be back. I'm thinking within 2 weeks, it will be the most important announcement that I'll ever make in my life. Whoa. And that's how big it is. And to me, you'll probably want to have me back on after it's done. and I'd love to come back on.
We absolutely will. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else, Bill, before Fast Five?
Let's hit the Fast Five. Let's get it going if Chris is up for
Fast Five. Oh, he's got this. I'm confident. All right, Chris. Number one, you scored 33 goals, including playoffs during your career. Which goal was most memorable?
You really got me on the spot. Most memorable goal. Well, the first one's always special.
Yep.
And so those are tough to remember. Except mine went off a shin pad into the top corner, so I'm going to try to to slide that behind me. I had a playoff game winner against Buffalo one year, and I had like 60 people in the locker room waiting with cameras after. I'm like, why are you guys here? I scored. It's no big deal, right? But that might have been a pretty good one. But like I used to tell my teammates, boys are all big, every single one of them.
There you go. Number 2, you played with some legendary Flyers in the late 90s and early 2000s, of course, the Legion of Doom, Rod Brindamore, Eric Desjardins, Hexy. The big question, though, who was the craziest of all those teammates?
Probably me. No, you know what? I hate to go back in time and say who the craziest was. Ronnie Hextall on the ice was a bit of a, like, you know, he had a very, very short fuse. A calm guy off the ice. My first roommate was Dave Brown. You know, who basically was him and Bob Probert, right? And I get in the room my first night with Brownie, and I'm looking at him like, man, you better not do anything wrong in this room. That's going to take you apart. But you know what? I mean, I played with some absolutely amazing times. This is a different time, guys. I think anytime you can live your life without knowing that it probably won't be on a cell phone video. I can assure you that the 90s and the early 2000s were a much, much different time than the one these guys are living in now.
Good point. Number 3, what will you miss most about doing the pre- and post-game TV work?
The people that I work with. I mean, you know, Katie Emmer, Al Morganti, my producer, Joe Fordyce, just great people. I mean, they're not the ones that make those decisions over there. They're dynamite people I love working with every single night, including the Flyers people as well, with that side of the organization.
Number 4, I'm sure you're aware that you have played more games as a Flyers defenseman than anybody else, 753. Trivia, do you know which Flyers D-men are second and third on the list?
I know Joe Watson's second. I don't know who's third, but I remember when Joe, you know, when I passed him, I thought that was like, you know, it should be a real tribute to Joe. You know, he won 2 Stanley Cups, and, you know, here I was, I passed him by just a few games. But, you know, Joe's a legend here, and I was just happy to be on the same map with him. I don't know who third was.
Eric Desjardins.
Desjardins, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. Number 5, let's see. Where is it? Oh, it's over here. A bobblehead of another former teammate of yours, if you can see it. That is Donald Brashear. Is there a Chris Therien bobblehead out there somewhere?
I don't think so.
I've never seen one.
I don't remember having a bobblehead night. No, I don't think so.
I looked online. I couldn't find one. You really should have one. All right, that was awesome.
It seems that the guy who's the all-time leader in defensive games should have a bobblehead. No,
I agree. We got to get on that.
You know, I was one of those guys. Like I said, I played with Rika Desjardins, and we were partners for 10 years. I always, you know, he was the Batman, I was the Robin. I never looked for, you know, any spot out of the shadows. I was happy with where I was, and I didn't get a bobblehead. I still got up and went to work the next day. It's all good.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, Chris, we thank you for coming by, and we certainly appreciate your work as a Flyer, obviously, but also your work into broadcasting. You're certainly going to be missed, and thanks. I'm excited to hear what you got coming up here in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And we will have you back.
I'm excited. I'm nervous at the same time, but I know that there is a great road ahead of me, and a great road ahead of a lot of other people that I know we're going to take to this. So.
Whenever you're ready, you're welcome to come back.
Spoken like a true player. You get knocked down, you get back up, dust off.
That's it. That's life.
All right, Chris. Thanks for joining us. Let's do it again.
You got it.